What is going on, guys? Gamers Goon here today. We are 10 days away from the draft, as you can see in the upper right hand corner. Um, and, well, while we are 10 days away, obviously you can see I'm recording this at 8:05 p.m., but this will be uploaded Tuesday. Wednesday, we'll have a video. We're going to do draft content all the way up until the NFL draft, and we're just going to do a bunch of different types of content, whether that's what I think the Bears should do, or whether that's potential gems that are going to be found. And then that's all going to lead up to next Wednesday, where we're going to do our final 2-round mock draft before the draft gets started on Thursday. Thursday, I will be late to the party because I do have class, but Thursday I will be, when I get home, live streaming the NFL draft and giving my reactions to it all. But we are starting off my draft content. I guess it's binge today with this video where it is still going to be a 2-round mock, but we're going to get to see a little bit of almost every team. This unfortunately does not allow trades, and the video that's going to be done next Wednesday is going to be off of PFF, because PFF made this stupid PFF Plus thing, and I'm not paying for it. But you can't trade. Boom! Like I can't sit a trade. Oh, I think I might be able to trade. No, yeah, I can't offer trades still, because I don't have it and I'm not buying it. But we're gonna assume for this video that everything is gonna be chalk. Everybody's gonna stay. There's no draft moves, and then I'm gonna have my own rendition next Wednesday off of this website, and it's gonna be with players' pictures, everything, going about it, kind of like a slideshow format, but not really. But we're gonna go over it that way next Wednesday. But let's look right into it right now. First, we have the Panthers. They are now on the clock. We've all wondered, is it Bryce Young? Is it CJ Stroud? Are they going to shock the world, go Anthony Richardson? Maybe it's Will Levis. I'm under the belief that CJ Stroud is the best quarterback in this class. I don't necessarily know if he is going to be the pick here, though. I like CJ Stroud more than I like Bryce Young based off size purely. But a lot of people say Bryce Young, this kid has the upside of being somebody that could be a Pro Bowl, like a Kyler Murray type. This guy has that potential to really be a star, where people don't necessarily view CJ Stroud as necessarily as big a boom potential there for CJ Stroud. But I know some people have some questions on whether or not CJ Stroud is as much of a star in the making as Bryce Young, but I still think CJ Stroud goes number one in this draft. So the Panthers, who traded up with my Chicago Bears, ended up taking CJ Stroud at number one, and that leaves the Texans on number two. And this is a dream scenario for the Texans. These three right here are dream scenarios. Bryce Young, quite potentially their number one guy on their entire board. Jalen Carter, quite potentially their number one guy on their board. I know there's character concerns, but if there's not those character concerns, he probably goes top three. Will Anderson, same thing here. Another guy that is probably near the very top of their board. Now, the Texans, they do have this pick 12, and if they think maybe a Will Levis or Anthony Richardson gets here and they're okay with that and passing up on Bryce Young, this could be where we see Will Anderson. I don't think Jalen Carter plays factor here, but I'm gonna say, since this is chalk and there's no trades or anything like that, this is Bryce Young. This is Bryce Young here at 2. Then we get to the Cardinals, obvious trade candidates, but we're living in the reality where there is no trades in the first 2 rounds. Nobody wants to make a move. They're all too scared. And if that's the case, there Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson a little bit further down here. Those are the two guys I'm looking at right here. And I think we might see a situation where Tyree Wilson could become the first defensive player off the board. I still think, in my opinion, Will Anderson's the best player in this class overall, yet alone just on defense. But overall, Will Anderson's my number one prospect in this entire draft. I think there's a potential that we could see Tyree Wilson go high, maybe even higher than Will Anderson, probably higher than Jalen Carter. But I think it's still Will Anderson here. I still think Will Anderson is the guy here. Now, the Colts, obviously, they might be going quarterback here with both CJ Stroud and Bryce Young gone. That limits their options. If I'm going quarterback here and I am the Colts, I love the upside of Anthony Richardson a little bit more than I love Will Levis. Will Levis, a lot of people are saying, could be like a Ryan Tannehill type. Anthony Richardson, obviously, the sky's the limit with him. Absolutely insane athlete, and you really hope you could develop him into being one of those elite um, mobile quarterbacks, one of those elite players overall. And you're looking at maybe a bigger Lamar Jackson type or something of that sort, where you're looking at a guy that can do almost anything, a Josh Allen type of guy. Anthony Richardson, I know he's had accuracy issues in the past. He's struggled to make big time throws at times. I think you got to look past that. That's going to be something that comes around with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson there at 4. Lock it in. Seahawks, now they're on the clock. Seahawks, Jalen Carter here's tempting, especially because he's probably a top 3 talent if the character concerns, the whole drag racing incident doesn't happen. Tyree Wilson's an option here, and I wouldn't even be surprised if Will Levis is an option here because they did have meetings with all the quarterbacks. I don't think it's Will Levis personally, but I wouldn't be shocked if they do go Will Levis. But Tyree Wilson being here, I think there's I think Jalen Carter is the better player, but I don't think there's enough of a difference between him and Tyree Wilson that you really got to gamble on Jalen Carter here on whether or not he'll be able to stay on the field and stay out of trouble. But Tyree Wilson, you know what he's going to be doing. You know he's going to be on the field. Granted, he is coming off of injury, but he had 8 sacks last year. Long, lengthy, 6'6" defender. I can even pull him up here a little bit. Look. Can we see a little bit about him? 6'6", 270, just real big kid here in Tyree Wilson. I absolutely love Tyree Wilson's game. I wouldn't be upset if the Bears were to snag him at 9, but I think that he's probably off the board here with the Seahawks, questioning a little bit about Jalen Carter and his character concerns. The Lions, now they're on the clock. I think everybody has them going DB here, whether that's Devon Witherspoon or Christian Gonzalez. I don't know. I don't think they have a consensus here either. But I could see this. I mean, I think with that later pick, you could be looking at a guy like a Brian Breeze, or you could be looking at a guy like a Kalijah Cansey there at 18, or you could swap it, and you could be looking at maybe a Deontay Banks, Joey Porter, or a Cam Smith there, or even a Kelee Ringo if you really want to reach, but a guy that I also think will be a first-round pick in Kelee Ringo, spoiler alert. But for the sake of doing something I haven't done, I think I'm going to go interior defense here. I think I'm going to take Jalen Carter off the board. I think he's too good of a player to pass up. You keep him on the field next to Aiden Hutchinson. That's going to be a deadly duo. And then you can hope that either one of Deontay Banks or Joey Porter is sitting there at 18. But with both of those guys now being off the board, I think you're probably looking at a... I don't think this is a Kalijah Cansey spot for the Raiders. Maybe edge rusher here. They could maybe shock us a little bit, go like a Lucas Van Ness here. But with the guys on the board, I think you got to commit to the defensive backs, and maybe even an offensive lineman. This is a tricky spot here, especially without trades, because I think this is probably prime Jalen Carter territory. But without him there, I don't think they're necessarily locked in on Gonzalez or Witherspoon. So I'm going to actually have them go offensive line. They're going to be the first ones to take an offensive lineman off the board. And where is he? Paris Johnson. I think he is the best offensive lineman in this class. In my book, I know a lot of people could say that it's Peter Skoronski, a little bit shorter arms there, or maybe even Broderick Jones. But to me, Paris Johnson is the most NFL capable offensive lineman, if that makes sense. He's the guy with the highest potential to really be a star in the league. Whereas Peter Skoronski, he can come in, he can be solid for you. I don't necessarily know if he's going to get to that star potential, but I really think Paris Johnson has that chance to become a next level offensive lineman and just dominate on an offensive line somewhere. And I think the Raiders, they can't pass that up there with who is on the board for them. Now you're looking at a Falcons team that's also tricky now. I think this is a very tricky spot if you're the Falcons. Obviously, Gonzalez, Witherspoon, both very tempting options. Will Levis, a tempting option here. Maybe you're looking at an edge rusher like a Lucas Van Ness. It's tempting. Maybe you're even looking at Nolan Smith here. Pretty tempting. Maybe you're looking at Jackson Smith and Jigba. I don't know. I really don't know, because this is usually about the time that I have either Tyree Wilson, Jalen Carter, etc. Really falling. This is tough now. Now that you can't do trades, this is kind of tough, huh? This kind of restricts you. I think without the ability to do trades, the thing that makes the most sense here is Will Levis. Obviously, you're not sold on Desmond Ridder. Obviously, Marcus Mariota was not the answer last year. Will Levis here, I think this could be a trade back scenario. You could look at the Titans, but if they stick, I wouldn't be surprised with the way the board's fallen for this to be Will Levis here. But I could see Will Levis, a Titans trade up here. I'm getting somebody like a Will Levis, and pretty much that's the only I mean, unless the Packers aren't really sold on Jordan Love, which I guess they might not be. We don't really know. Well, you're still looking at a board that has two of the top defensive backs and defensive players in general on the board. But I don't think the Bears are the team to do it. I think you're looking at either offensive tackle here or maybe even an edge rusher here. And to me, Peter Skoronski's tempting, but I think Nolan Smith's going to go a lot higher than people expect. As a Bears fan, I really love Nolan Smith. I think he'd be great in our system. And obviously, a big thing with Nolan Smith and his recruitment in Georgia is he wanted to go play with Justin Fields. Obviously, we saw how that worked out. He didn't get to play very long with Justin Fields. This time, he gets an opportunity to play with Justin Fields, Nolan Smith there at 9 to Chicago. Then we get to the Eagles, and the Eagles, they're going to be the ones to stop the fall. It's really a flip of the coin here between Gonzalez and Witherspoon. Witherspoon obviously smaller than Gonzalez, but also Witherspoon, one of the best coverage corners in all of football last year. Gonzalez, same thing there. A little bit feistier of a player here, a little bit more of a reserved player here in Gonzalez, but I think based off size, you got to go Christian Gonzalez here. If you're the Eagles obviously, they might be looking at a Skoronski, could be tempted a little bit, but with Gonzalez on the board, I think you got to take him. The Titans now on the board, they're kicking themselves a little bit. Will Levis is now off the board, and I think with Will Levis being off the board, Peter Skoronski, you can't let him go much further. It makes the most sense there if you are the Titans. Then we go to a Houston team that took Bryce Young. I think here you could see them go edge rusher, but that's like a Lucas Van Ness type of guy, or maybe they even shock us a little bit and go Adebawore, athletic freak out of Northwestern. I think he could slide first round a little bit earlier than people are expecting, be a little bit of a reach pick for somebody. This could be a receiver spot, whether it's JSN, Zay Flowers, maybe even Quentin Johnston here. Or maybe we're looking at a defensive back to pair opposite side of Derek Stingley. Is that Devon Witherspoon here? And I'm having trouble going somewhere here, but I think I'm going to keep it relatively simple and go Jackson Smith and Jigba. Obviously, not a great year last year. Injury concerns there. But this right here, you can't teach what he can do. It's just a matter of him staying on the field. But we're gonna draft Jackson Smith and Jigba here at 12. So now you got the Alabama quarterback, the Ohio State receiver. You don't need the Ohio State quarterback and Ohio State receiver. You need the Alabama one. The Jets, they're now on the clock, and I think I've had them taking the same guy for a long time, unless he's off the board, which could be the case. But obviously Darnell Wright shooting up boards. You look at Broderick Jones, a little bit here, about to turn 22, big human being, very mobile human being for being that big. You look at Darnell Wright here, a little bit younger, a little bit bigger. I don't know, man. It could be a coin flip here between Broderick Jones and Darnell Wright. I have Broderick Jones as the third guy though, off that offensive line class taken off the board. The Patriots here. I don't see how you're the Patriots and you look at the way the board's fallen and you don't think this couldn't be a great spot for Darnell Wright. You need help on the offensive line. This could maybe even be a Lucas Van Ness spot. Could also make a lot of sense here. I think receiver makes sense here for them. The Patriots are a team that I think could use a lot of help, and Darnell Wright definitely starts that trend there in giving them help. So we've seen in the last 4 picks, we've seen 3 offensive linemen go off the board. Now we get to the Packers. You're looking at a team right now that a lot of people think this could be tight end. Could it be Dalton Kincaid? Could it be Matthew Mayer? Could it be defensive line? Kalijah Kancey sitting there. Aaron Donald caliber player, I guess. With his little size concerns, he's not as big as necessarily you'd expect a defensive interior man. Lucas Van Ness, a guy that I think has definitely been a possibility for them. But I think with the way the board's fallen, they still take Lucas Van Ness. He's a guy that I've had mocked to them for a while, and I still think that it's very possible here that they take him. The Commanders, they got to be jumping at joy. Devon Witherspoon should not be here, but he is. I know it doesn't list it as a concern, as a need, but you need to get him here. They are a team that I think could use help in the secondary. Witherspoon definitely helps that case for you. Then we get to the Steelers, and I think they also stick to the trend of defensive back. They don't go Deonte Banks. They go the hometown kid, Joey Porter, bring him back, keep him in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Then you see, this is why this Jalen Carter pick is so crucial. Because now they go corner. They added a little bit more flexibility. Jalen Carter would have been off the board by now. They would have had to either go Kalijah Kancey here. Probably more would have been Kalijah Kancey. Or they would have to settle for an edge rusher more than likely. Or maybe this is a receiver spot for them to add to somebody next to Amon-Ra St. Brown. But taking Jalen Carter does free up the board a little bit for them. And I think after trading Jeffrey Okudah, they still go corner. After missing out on their first corner, I don't know if there's that significant of a drop-off in the corners as there is between Jalen Carter and Kalijah Kancey. I think you can live with getting Deonte Banks rather than getting Kalijah Kancey and having him be significantly different from a Jalen Carter, whereas maybe you take Witherspoon or maybe you take Gonzalez, and I don't necessarily think the gap between them and Deonte Banks is as big as the gaps between Jalen Carter and Kalijah Kancey. I do like Kalijah Kancey. I do think he's a great player, but Jalen Carter is a different animal. He's a beast. And I don't know if you can pass that up there. So you still get your 2 positions of need, just in a slightly different order. The Buccaneers, obviously this is a trade candidate. QB, not really in play here. Tight end, very well could be in play. Maybe looking at a Dalton Kincaid type of guy here. But I'm actually going to go offensive line, and I'm going to have them taking Antoine Harrison. I think this kid is pretty solid. Do I know if he's going to be a lock in the first round? I don't know. He might slide in that second round. He's a guy that I could see that happening to. But without trades, with the way the board's fallen, with the needs of the Buccaneers, I think that's the most likely situation for them. And now we get to the Seahawks, who are now on the clock. They did draft some offensive linemen last year. They do need some help in the interior offensive line still. I think O'Cyrus Torrence makes plenty of sense here at 20. Then we get to the Chargers, And I think everybody knows they're taking receiver. It's just a matter of which one of these three, if these three are there, which one of these three. I don't want to take Quentin Johnston because they have a guy like Mike Williams, and Mike Evans there. I think Zay Flowers gives them a different look. I think Jordan Addison gives them a different look. I'm going to say it's Jordan Addison. Southern California connection. I think they get a better look at Addison than they do at Zay Flowers, and potentially that could lead to them drafting Jordan Addison instead. Another team here I could see going receiver. Quentin Johnston being on the board, I wouldn't be shocked if they traded up maybe to this Lions pick, or maybe to this Buccaneers pick, or maybe even a little bit higher to like this Commanders pick. If Johnston makes it past a team like the Patriots or a team like the Packers, I could see a team like Baltimore that needs a receiver getting a little bit antsy and trading up and getting Quentin Johnston. Him at the board at 22, that screams Baltimore. Keep him in purple. The Vikings, another team that I think could trade for receiver early on. The way the receivers have fallen, Zay Flowers is here. I think you pair him up next to Justin Jefferson, and that is a deadly duo. This is a team that I've had taking Brian Branch for a long time. I think it still could be a team that you're looking at potentially. Brian Branch, maybe Deonte Banks if he's on the board. Cam Smith is an option here. You're looking at maybe Kelee Ringo down the line a little bit. Offensive lineman, there's not really anybody. We could look at edge rusher maybe here. Maybe it's a Myles Murphy. Maybe it's a BJ Ojulari. Maybe it's Adebawore. I don't know. And this there's no rhyme or reason as to why I think this. I really don't, but I still think they got to go with Brian Branch. Somebody's got to take Brian Branch. He's just too good of a player to leave out of the first round, and I think a team like the Jaguars could be the team. We get to the Giants now. The Giants, I know you could be looking at receivers, but there's nobody here. You don't take a chance on Tank Dell or Josh Downs here. Maybe it's a Jalen Hyatt situation. I don't think it is. I know you might be looking at like a linebacker, Trenton Simpson type, or maybe you're looking at an edge rusher here to add next to Kayvon Thibodeaux. I don't know, man. I really don't know. Maybe this is a Dalton Kincaid area. Maybe it's a Myles Murphy area. Like Kalijah Kancey on the board. I find it hard to believe he's going to be there still at 25, and if he is, I think you just got to roll with the punches and take the best player available. A team that like the Giants that over succeeded last year, did more than what they were expected to do. I think they don't get in any significant problems by taking best player available there. This is a top 10 player, 100%. They just let Zeke go. Obviously, you have Tony Pollard there still, but you add Bijan Robinson, workhorse back next to Tony Pollard. Keeps the same dynamic, keeps him in Texas. Everything adds up there. It makes perfect sense to go Bijan Robinson there. Then we're looking at a Buffalo team that they could use some help in the secondary. Brian Branch would be good here. Obviously, if Deonte Banks is here, it makes sense. Maybe even a Cam Smith here, maybe Kelee Ringo here. But to me, I still think this is a chance for a linebacker. They just lost Tremaine Edmonds. And I do think Trenton Simpson's still going to potentially be around that first, second round. I know what they say about him. I don't necessarily agree. Deion Henley, same thing. Could he be potentially in the first round? Myles Murphy, a guy that I think could slide in the first round, but also could slide out. But I think Myles Murphy here is the safest of options here for the Buffalo Bills. The Bengals, they're now on the clock, and this is I don't see Dalton Kincaid making it out of the first round. I don't. I know. And can we see? Can we see a little bit about him? Does it show how many games? Yeah, regardless, this kid, he's gonna have some struggles potentially staying on the field, maybe. Um, but I don't know if it's gonna be a huge concern, especially a team that already has so many weapons like T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow, diming him up. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be that significant of a problem that he's going to be getting the ball too much and getting hit, and really just his lack of size is going to really come to bite him. He was dominant at Utah, and I think he could remain dominant at Utah and take that into the NFL. So we're going to have Dalton Kincaid there. 29 Saints, 100% is a trade down spot. I think they trade. They don't, though, in this situation. Cam Smith's in play, but I've been telling myself Keely Ringo's getting drafted first round. I'm probably most of why he's still a top 60 something player in the average draft pick. I think he's going first round. Something's telling me he's going first round. There's always somebody that goes first round that you don't expect. To me, it's Keely Ringo. I think you bet on his highs. You, for now, ignore his lows. He's a guy that can have some extremely high highs and some very low lows. But I think when you're drafting Keely Ringo, you're looking at the kid that is one of the better players in the entire class. Size, speed. It says it here. All yeah. It says it for you here. But right here, I wouldn't say always playing catch up, but there's times where Keely Ringo looks lost. You got to bet on those times when he's not lost. You got to hope that you can change him. He's a first round talent when he's hitting. He is not when he's not. And just the inconsistency with Keely Ringo's game is potentially what's going to cost him a first round pick. Where I think going into the season, he was almost a lock for first round. I still think you bet on that when you're drafting Keely Ringo. The The Eagles are now on the clock, and I think they went Gonzalez. They did. And with them going Gonzalez there, I think this could be a situation where either it's Brian Brise who's here, maybe it's a Will McDonald who's here, but I wanna do something you guys haven't seen very often, and I wanna reach a little bit. And yes, Josh Downs is here. I know his average draft pick is better, but I think Tank Dell is the better option here than Josh Downs personally. So we're taking Tank Dell and we're going to pair him up with AJ Brown and company there in Philadelphia. It's going to be interesting to see what Tank Dell can do there, but I don't hate that pick, believe it or not. And then to cap off round one, we are going to draft an edge rusher, believe it or not. I think, obviously, you lost Frank Clark. You have Karlaftis on the other side of things. I think you go get another guy that's going to be a problem. And yes, Will McDonald's interesting athletically. Can we see what his combine was? I know he didn't have the best of combines. Can we see it, though? I don't think you can see it. But he's a good player. Will McDonald is. BJ Ojulari could be the guy here, but I'm gonna have them take Adebawore out of Northwestern. He's a guy that could slide in that first round, anywhere from mid to late first round. Just athletic, a beast. Wouldn't shock me if he jumped up boards. This Steelers pick could be on the move. Potential trade being made between them and the Bears, but this Steelers pick, let's take a quick reminder of what they did. They went and at 17 they took Joey Porter, and I know they were wanting to trade up for a potential offensive lineman. And here I don't see how, if you're looking at DeJuan Jones, maybe even Steve Avila if you want to reach a little bit more, but I think DeJuan Jones being here just screams like a good pick there for them. DeJuan Jones, also a guy that I could see going into that first round. Then we're looking at this Texans team. Let's take a little look. They had Jack Smith and Jigba, obviously Bryce Young, a team that I thought could go Jalen Carter earlier in this draft process. Obviously, I don't think that's the case anymore. But I think you could be looking at an interior defensive lineman here. Mozzie Smith is tempting. Brian Breeze, I can never say his name properly. Breeze. I think he's probably going to be off the board before Mazi Smith, but I wouldn't be shocked if Mazi Smith goes. But that helps their defensive line up a little bit. So they got 3 first-round caliber guys, basically. This Cardinals, Will Anderson, they now get to go and try to figure out the rest of their team. I thought they could potentially be in play for a defensive back. Here, they're going to be in play for a defensive back. I think Cam Smith is off the board fairly early in that second round. He's going to be going to Arizona. Then we had the Colts. They took Anthony Richardson. The Colts, they need a lot of work done. Could be receiver. Next to Pittman. Is that Josh Downs? They did lose Paris Campbell, I believe. It could be Josh Downs. It could be tight end even. Michael Mayer makes perfect sense here. They just have a lot of problems, don't they? I think I'm going to go Michael Mayer. It just gives them too much of a dynamic weapon. That's just a big weapon for a young quarterback to have. Then we get to the Rams' first pick. Obviously, Bijan Robinson would be an option here, but he's not there. Jahmyr Gibbs turns into an option. You're looking at even defensive line. If I can find Mazi Smith, he's an option here. Long term, I don't know if what Aaron Donald's situation is. I thought he retired, but I think he's back. I'm not really sure. Edge rusher could be an interesting spot here. And if they do take edge rusher, I think it's B.J. Ojulari. So I'm going to take B.J. Ojulari. I think he is a player that could even see late first round. I do like his game. The Seahawks. Now we're looking at a Seahawks team that took Tyree Wilson, that took O'Cyrus Torrence, and I know they might be a little hesitant on Geno Smith long term, and I know they have Tyler Lockett, and I know they have DK Metcalf, but Jalen Hyatt here is a guy I think is a first-round talent, but I think he'll slide a little bit outside the first. Jalen Hyatt at 37, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, that offense is brutal. And you were able to go get your edge rusher, you were able to help your offensive line, and you still were able to go get your weapon of a first-round caliber there. So Seahawks are hitting a home run currently. The Raiders, what do we have them do? We had them take Paris Johnson, and I think we could see this potentially. Maybe they toy around with the idea of a Tanner McKee here. Maybe they toy around with a Hendon Hooker. And you know what? Now that I say Hendon Hooker, I think Hooker will go in the first 2 rounds. Obviously, I don't know if they'll mention it here in his thing. He's coming off injury. Yeah, torn ACL. But I think Hendon Hooker's still a really good player, and if he never had that ACL, I think he could be that top 10 quarterback. He could easily be in the spot Will Levis is, and Will Levis could still be here. But since I had them pass on Will Levis, I think the Raiders are a team, man. When you look at them, they have Devontae Adams there for now, but they could use a quarterback like a Hendon Hooker. So we're going to have Hendon Hooker go to the Raiders. Obviously, I know there's a potential that they trade for Lamar Jackson. I don't think that's going to happen. Bryce Young and the Panthers CJ Stroud and the Panthers now, they just traded DJ Moore. They need to go get a receiver. Josh Downs obviously would be the next best guy. Maybe you can make a case for Cedric Tillman or Kayshon Butte. Kayshon Butte, I'm not really sure why he's ranked as low as he is. To me, he's still one of those guys that could be really solid in the NFL. But different player, ankle surgery, blah, blah, blah. He had the situation where he almost walked out on the team last year. But still a guy that I think could be very similar last year to what we saw Pickens be, where he could slide a little bit, but he's going to be an immediate impact player, Kayshon Butte. But I think Josh Downs is probably the safest pick here to pair with CJ Stroud for the Panthers. Saints, now they're on the clock. They took Kelee Ringo last pick, but I think they have a little bit easier of a time this time around because they still get an interior offensive lineman, which they need, and I think you probably go with John Michael Schmitz. I know Luke Weipler and Joe Tippmann are above him in the center rankings, but I still think If you ask almost anybody, John Michael Schmitz, outside of PFF for some reason, is the top center in this class. So they go get their center there in John Michael Schmitz. Titans, they're back on the clock, and what did we have them do? Since they couldn't get Will Levis, they took Peter Skoronski. Okay. I don't think this is Tanner McKee. I really don't. This could be receiver still. Maybe this is Cedric Tillman. Maybe this is Keyshawn Butte. Maybe this is even Marvin Mims, who I really like. A.T. Perry. I don't know if I'm right. 6'5"? I think he's 6'5". No, he's 6'3". Okay, I'm wrong. But A.T. Perry, another big body receiver. I don't know what you do here necessarily. You took your offensive lineman. And I think after you take your offensive lineman, you either got to go receiver or you got to go quarterback. And I don't know if Tanner McKee is the guy. And last year they took Malik Willis. This year, I don't know. But it's hard for me to look at. It's hard. I mean, they just lost an edge rusher. It's hard for me to look up Will McDonald or Tuli Tuipulotu or even Felix. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name out of Kansas State. But Will McDonald is the best one to me. Will McDonald here at 41. He's a guy that could slide first round, but I don't know if he's going to. We'll have him go there. This is the Jets. They had offensive tackle and linebackers in play. And you know what? Since linebackers in play, let's get him off the board. Trenton Simpson. I don't think he's going to be here. I know he says he's 70th. I don't think Trenton Simpson's going to make it to 70. I really don't. I really do not. Now you're looking at a team here that they helped their offensive line out a little bit. They helped out their defense now. A team that could potentially be trading for Aaron Rodgers. Do they want another receiver? They're probably going to have to give up like a Corey Davis type of guy in the trade, so it's just going to be Garrett Wilson and Allen Lazard. Maybe they want to go for another receiver like a Cedric Tillman, which would never hurt them. Obviously, they have Breece Hall there. Tight end. Do they have a tight end? I'm not sure what their tight end situation is, actually, off the top of my head. They don't need an interior defensive lineman. They toying with a corner. Opposite side of Sauce could be fun. And who would that be for us, though? Would it be Forbes? Clark Phillips, even? I do like Clark Phillips. I don't know if he's going to go above some of these guys. We'll keep it a little chalky and we'll go Emmanuel Forbes for now. And he'll play opposite side of Sauce Gardner. Then the Falcons are back on the clock. And what did we have them do? Just quick reminders. Will Levis. Okay. Will Levis. See, they say they need a receiver. Obviously, you got Drake London. Obviously, you got Cordero Patterson, the all-purpose back, whatever. But could you use more? Could you use more receivers? I really like Cedric Tillman. I think he'll go pretty early. You obviously have Kyle Pitts there. Ed Rusher could be an interesting spot here. Obviously, we thought maybe they could go Lucas Van Ness. You know what? I'm going to have them go Ed Rusher. I've talked myself into it. Somebody's going to drop. I don't know, man. Does Felix go above Tuli? I think he does. But I feel like I'm doing something wrong, which obviously all of these are going to be wrong. But having that chalk feels a little bit wrong to me. I don't know why. The Packers, now they're back on the board. Obviously, let's take a look back. And they went Van Ness. I think this is probably a situation here. Yes, you have Jordan Love, but I don't see why not. Tanner McKee's here. A guy that we thought could go first round at some point last season. I don't know if you're sold on Jordan Love. I really don't. And unless you're maybe thinking Sam Laporta here, or Luke Musgrave, or Darnell Washington, which obviously all those three guys would be decent pickups here. But I think you probably, unless you're thinking tight end, Tanner McKee's the option here. I don't think Tanner McKee's going to go top. I'm really trying to sell myself on whether or not I think Tanner McKee's going to go first round or second round first 2 rounds. I don't know if he will. Um, Luke Musgrave, I really like. I think he will be solid in the NFL. But I find it hard to believe I think Darnell Washington could be a first rounder. You know what? He's going to come off here. He's going to come off here. Darnell Washington's off the board. I talked myself into it. Let's take a look back at the Patriots. I believe they went they went offensive line. I thought they could go receiver last round. Obviously, Quentin Johnston on the board, Zay Flowers, those guys. Edge rusher was an option. So I think you're potentially looking at some of these positions here. But they took offensive lineman and Darnell Wright. Looking at the board, Tooley's here. Isaiah Foskey seems like a Patriots type of player to me. Actually, you know who I'm going to have them take? And he's actually going to be down here a ways, but I think he could be a fringe first round pick. And I think a lot of people would agree. Keion White. This kid is a dark horse in this draft. I think he could go a lot higher than people expect. Obviously, being from Georgia Tech, not the greatest of spots, but you're going to see some reaches. Keion White's a guy that could go first round. I've seen some people have him first round. He's going to be one of those guys that potentially could be reached for a little bit. Do I think he's necessarily a top 50 player? I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but I can tell you that it wouldn't shock me if he goes in the top 50 or if he goes in the top 3 rounds. But he's a guy that I've seen mocked in some first rounds, and I think Keion White is definitely a very interesting player to look at when you're drafting. Then we get to a Commanders team. They obviously took corner and Dev Weatherspoon here. Tanner McKee becomes real tempting again. So was a guard. So does if this would be a great spot for Steve Avila, would it not be? Chandler Zavala even. I think I want to go Steve Avila. I really do. I think Steve Avila. Then the Lions back on the clock, and I believe they took corner and defensive lineman and Jalen Carter. Okay, yep. That's what they went. Corner, D-line. Tight end. Big concern after trading TJ Hawkinson. You got Musgrave, you got Laporta. I like Musgrave more. We'll take Musgrave off the board for now. Steelers, they're back on the clock. We had them last time out. Who did they take to start the round? DeJuan Jones. They filled up their corner need and Joey Porter. I don't know how much of a need it is, but Mazi Smith and Daiyan Henley being here doesn't feel right. It really doesn't. I'm going to have them take Mazi Smith. Isn't necessarily the most likely pick. I don't know. I really don't know. But Mazi Smith is too good to still be there. And it's one of those situations. You got to draft the best players. That's a kid that could go late first round. Then we have the Buccaneers on the clock. They took Antoine Harrison, offensive tackle there, last time out of Oklahoma. Tight end still available. This could be Sam Laporta. Running back, I feel like could be interesting, and Jahmyr Gibbs. They lost Leonard Fournette, so Jahmyr Gibbs is an option. Maybe even Zach Charbonnet is an option a little bit. Safety, potentially an option. If Mazi Smith makes another pick, maybe he's an option. Brian Breeze slides down. Maybe he's an option. But I think with the guys on the board, Jahmyr Gibbs is the answer here without Leonard Fournette coming back next year. Then we get to the Dolphins. And I'm not really sure what the Dolphins do, to be honest. I'm not really sure what they do. And actually, I have a Dolphins friend, so let's see. Joseph, my boy. I think he wants him to go to offensive lineman. He's gonna be asleep right now, so I didn't message him. I just had to check what time it is. But Offensive line, Matthew Bergeron could be interesting. Could be interesting. Even interior offensive lineman like Luke Weipler could be interesting. Cody Mauch. This kid is absolutely huge. Are they going to show a picture of him? They're not going to show a picture of him. Unfortunately, we don't get to be graced by his beautiful picture where he lost multiple teeth from his freshman to senior year or junior, whatever it is. But I think it's a Matthew Bergeron here. I think we're going with Bergeron. Now we have a team that took Jalen Hyatt. We have a team that took Osiris Torrance and took Tyree Wilson. This is a spot that I feel comfortable doing this. They've got some positions filled. It's a fairly decent team. I think with Geno Smith having his weird opt-out clause, if he's not what they expect him to be, Tanner McKee, a team that we thought could potentially, they were looking at some quarterbacks. This spot makes sense to me. Tanner McKee, he's given time behind Geno and really allowed the opportunity to develop and not really being thrusted out there right away. Team that took Nolan Smith last time around. Now they are back on the clock. Luke Weipler, big fan of him here. And I think obviously you're looking at an offensive line here that Tevin Jenkins is there, Cody Whitehair is there, and Braxton Jones is there. And that's really the only three guys that I would have any sort of allegiance to when it comes to that offensive line. So Braxton Jones, a tackle, and then you're looking at Tevin, who's also a tackle. So I would say Cody Mauch is probably not the guy. And you could play Whitehair at guard. He has played center as well, but you could play him pretty much anywhere. He's a little bit more versatile. Chandler Zavala here is tempting me. He's really tempting me. But I think Luke Weipler being here is the right option. Obviously, last year was not a great year at the center position with Sam Mustipher there, but I think Luke Weipler could turn those fortunes around and help out the Bears there. Then we get to the Chargers, who they will be drafting. They took a receiver. Could they go a linebacker? Could they go opposite side corner of Asante Samuel Jr.? Let's see the corners on the board. Anybody that speaks to me as a Charger. I do like DJ Turner. But I don't know if this is the DJ Turner area. Linebacker Dayon Henley is very tempting. Edge rusher Tuli Tupuola is pretty tempting. I don't see Dayon falling out. We'll take Dayon Henley here. So we went tight end, corner, interior defense here. So the Lions, I think we might be able to play around with a little bit of a receiver reach here. And I think this is where we could see Cedric Tillman or Kayshon Butte. To me, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown there. You have him locked down. I see Kayshon Butte as a guy that could be similar to Pickens. That he might not come in and be the first round pick of any team because of concerns off the field, because he necessarily hasn't cared at any point long term. But he is a guy that was at one point one of the top receivers in his class. He wasn't going to come out, then he did come out, a guy that I think could have been a top receiver in next year's class. He did state he ended up declaring, obviously, we'll take a look at him, about 6 foot, just about to turn 21. I think he is a guy that you could trust, put his mind to things, in a system that's going to be good, and a team that's going to be competing for their division without Aaron Rodgers there. Kayshon Butte is a guy that I think could be a solid pickup. Now, you might be looking at me, Kayshon Butte's not going to go to the third or fourth round. Yeah, maybe not. But I think the talent's there with Kayshon Butte. I do. The same thing with Kelee Ringo. He could be third round, but I think the talent's there. And you got to bet on him bringing that talent to work. You got to bet on it. Because when you don't bet on it, that's how you let guys slide. That's how you let somebody get George Pickens down the line. Because you think maybe he's not going to show up to work every week. Maybe he's going to half ass everything. Maybe he is. Or maybe he's not. Maybe he's going to come and do what he's drafted to do. And I think with Amon-Ra St. Brown there, drafting Luke Musgrave, drafting Tyree Wilson, drafting Deonte Banks at this point, you got 3 really good players. This is your 4th pick. You can reach a little bit. Kayshon Butte might be a little bit of a reach, but I do think he's a good player. We're having him go in the top 55. The Lions, they took Brian Branch. Thank God they did. I'm a little bit mad at them because of what they're about to do, but I think this is where... Nope. I want... Do I think they're in position for a tackle? I kind of do. I feel like Cody Mauch makes sense to them. Does it have a potential? Wow, they actually do think he's coming to us. I wouldn't mind that. Or maybe it is interior offensive line. If that is interior offensive line, it could be Tippmann, it could be Zavala, and I pretty much think that's it. Maybe if it's Tyler Steen, a guy that I think could go a little bit earlier than normal. You know what? We're going to throw a little bit more of a curveball. We'll say Chandler Zavala goes here. Chandler Zavala, I think, could go earlier. Not earlier, but in the early rounds, the second, third round. Earlier than his PFF ranking suggests, but I think he is very solid as a player. So Chandler Zavala there in the top 100. The Giants now, we've seen what they did last time, where they went Kalijah Kancey. Receiver obviously was in play if the right guy was there. Linebacker was in play if the right guy was there. Deion Henley, a few spots off the board. Jack Campbell, a guy I really like. Drew Sanders, however, is a guy that I absolutely think will be a steal in that second round and could be a guy that you're looking at next year or even the year after. And like, how did he get into that second round? And Drew Sanders is going to be there at number 57. Cowboys, we saw them take Bijan. I think this is maybe a spot for Tuipulotu. I'm really bad at his name. If the Bears draft him, I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce it. Tuipulotu. See, the first name's messing up. Tuipulotu. Tuipulotu. You got to say it really slow for it to work. But I think it's probably the situation here. With Bijan off the board for them, I think now you look at that offense or the defensive line, you add more pieces to it. Yes, Keanu Benton's interesting. Maybe even Andre Carter with his size is interesting. Maybe you're looking at Siaka Ika. Other than that, maybe even Zach Pickens. I actually really love Zach Pickens. But Tuipulotu, I cannot say it fast. He should not be on the board here. He is too good of a player to make it to 58. And somebody could let him fall there. So we'll see what ends up happening on draft night, but he's on the board there, so that's where we're going to have the Cowboys take him. And then we're looking at a team that took Myles Murphy, also a team that could take DB, whether that's safety. I don't know if they take Antonio Johnson, maybe a little bit too early for him still. It's about round his spot, but with the guys on the board, I think maybe you're more likely to see like a Tyreek Stevenson, a Julius Brents, or even a DJ Turner go. Jordan Battle could be interesting too. I think he's a little bit underrated. But I think Tyreek Stevenson here makes some sense, adding another defensive back to that secondary. A team last time around, did they take Mayer or did they took Kincaid? So they were the ones that took Kincaid. So they went tight end. I think interior defensive line is still a thing here. Mozzie Smith was still around. That would be a good pick. Siaki Ika's still around, though. That would be a really good pick. I do like Ika a little bit more than I like Benton as of right now. Secondary, you could maybe look at a safety. I do believe they lost Jesse Bates. So maybe it is Antonio Johnson here. If you want to replace Eli Apple even, maybe you also look at corner here in that secondary. Julius Brents, But to me, I like Siaki Ika. I think it's a deep corner class. Trevius Hodges-Tomlinson is going to be there in the third round. DJ Turner could be there in the third round. Jordan Battle will be there. Clark Phillips, a really good player. Sidney Brown's going to be there. Jartavius Martin's going to be there. Ronnie Hickman's going to be there. Eli Ricks is going to be there. Riley Moss, a decent small little corner. I think he's fairly small, if I'm not mistaken. He's not as small as I thought he was. I thought he was 6 flat and then under 200, but J.L. Skinner's still going to be there. Christopher Smith, a guy that could have been a little bit higher in a different year. Jair Brown is going to be there. Caillou Blue Kelly is going to be there. There's like Jacorian Bennett had a good combine. Brandon Joseph, also a guy that could have been there. But this is a deep corner class, is what I'm saying basically. And I think Siaki Ika is a little bit a little bit more of a need considering how deep the corner class is compared to the defensive back class. The Bears, once again on the clock, we had them go Luke Weipler and Nolan Smith. Now, this pick, I think this is where you probably could see somebody like Mach go. Nolan Smith, that helps the defensive line up a little bit. Corner, I don't think is really much of a play here. Receiver could be a play. Running back, sneaky running back spot here. Maybe it's Zach Charbonnet. They did lose David Montgomery, and now they just have Khalil Herbert. Could be a sneaky running back spot. I think that's where I'm going to want to go because I was looking at Chandler Zavala there, and he's not there. And with Mach, I don't think the Bears really are going to draft tackle. I think if they draft somebody, it's going to be a guard on that interior. I know there's been some concerns long term that not everybody likes Tevin. I really like Tevin. I think that we're going to really find out this draft class whether or not he's a long-term answer. He's a guy that I really do enjoy, though, in our offensive line. So with that being said, I think Zach Charbonnet here is the pick for the Bears. The Eagles, they drafted... Who did they draft? They took Tank Dell. And they also took Christian Gonzalez, didn't they? Guards off the board. Is Tittman still there? Tittman's still there. But yeah, Tittman's still there. I'm taking Tittman 10 times out of 10. That's a brilliant spot for Tittman to go. And this is tricky, man. This is tricky. They went Adebawore last round. Jack Campbell's really tempting. He's really tempting. Don't get me wrong. He's really tempting. But I think it's a receiver. I think it's Cedric Tillman. It pains me to do this because I like Cedric Tillman. I don't want him to go to the enemy, but I think Cedric Tillman is going to be in the first 2 rounds. I'm going to have Cedric Tillman go there. Yeah, see, you got to unlock everything. I don't want to unlock everything. How about that? But anyways, let's take a quick recap of the first round. C.J. Stroud goes at 1. Bryce Young, chalk. Will Anderson, chalk. Anthony Richardson starts to spice things up. A little bit more chalk there. Jalen Carter rises back up on boards. Paris Johnson goes a little bit earlier than expected. Will Levis slides a little bit, but still makes it in the top 10. Noah Smith jumps up boards. Christian Gonzalez, first defensive back off boards. Peter Skoronski right about where we expect him to be. Jackson Smith and Jig with the first receiver. Broderick Jones. Darnell Wright. They start off a little tackle run there. Lucas Van Ness making it right to the Packers. Devon Witherspoon's fall stops. That starts Joey Porter and Deonte Banks' trend of corners going off the board. Then we go back to the offensive line between Harrison and Torrance. Then we see a receiver run with Addison, Johnston, and Flowers. And we get back to potentially best player available situation in Brian Branch making his way into the draft at 24. We have the Giants at 25 taking best player available in Kancey. We see 3 really positional needs here with best player available. And then we get Myles Murphy, a need losing on Edmonds. Get a tight end really helps that offense out. Kelee Ringo jumps back up to first round where I think he belongs. Tank Dell rises in the first round, and Adebawore rises his way into the first round. So we don't have anything really all that crazy happening outside of maybe these three guys jumping into the first round. But everybody else is pretty much going to be in the first round in some order. I don't know if it's going to be the specific teams. Nolan Smith could be maybe down the line to the, let's say that he goes to the Lions. And maybe this right here is Peter Skoronski, and this right here is Broderick Jones, and this right here is Darnell Wright. But a lot of these guys are going to go first round. That's all I got to say. But obviously, that is what it is. Your guys are going to be seeing this Tuesday. On Wednesday, my top 100 is going to come out. So my top 100 players in this class. I'm going to start it off with my 100th player and make my way all the way back down to number 1, who you guys kind of already know is Will Anderson, because I've said it, but obviously you don't know my full top 100. So that will be something for you guys to tune back in for. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.